Yes. I love it, dude. Let's do this. All right, cool. Welcome back to the I Am Podcast. I'm Charles Beyer, your host, and today we're diving into something that every person who's ever tried to follow God's calling has faced: the naysayers. Woo! The naysayers. You know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. Those voices that pour cold water on your dreams, that tell you to play it safe, that say it'll never work. No, that's the naysayers. And today I'm joined by my good friend, Brent Haggerty, who's got some incredible insight on this topic. Brent, man, welcome.
Sure. So good to be here. But let me tell you, the subject hits very close to home, not just for me, I think for all of us. Naysayers, man.
Yeah.
Hate them.
Me too. I mean, it does, though. I was reading Numbers 14:3 this morning. The Israelites are standing at the promised land, the very place God led them to. And what did they say? Why is the Lord taking us here just to die?
Charles, they literally want to go back to slavery rather than trust God's promise. Now that, my friend, is the power of fear. Anytime they get serious about God's calling, Chuck, I think someone will always oppose it. I'd say it this way: when you hear God's voice in this ear, you'll always hear another voice. Satan throws everything at us to keep us from our destiny, right?
You're exactly right. I mean, look what happened to the Israelites, right? They wanted to stone Joshua and Caleb for having faith. But Caleb had uncommon courage because he served an uncommon God.
And Nehemiah's another one. He was rebuilding Jerusalem's walls. Sanballat mocked him. What are these feeble Jews doing? Yes. He said, even a fox could knock over this wall. But Nehemiah prayed instead of arguing with his critics. That's a huge principle. They finished in 52 days, and their enemies, they lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with God's help. Powerful.
That's incredibly powerful. And yeah, you could do anything with God's help. When he's with you, when he's on your side, there's nothing you can't accomplish. Now, there's a lot of naysayers out there, right? So if there's someone out there facing a naysayer, what's your advice?
I would say that they need to make a decision now to reject negative advice. Just flat out decide now and then manage it when it comes. Not if you face opposition, but when you face it, because it is absolutely guaranteed.
I love that. And I wish I had someone there with me when I was going through my troubled times of naysayers. And remember, even well-meaning people can give ungodly counsel. Look at Peter in Matthew 16. He just declared Jesus as the Christ, then immediately tried to talk Jesus out of the cross. Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan."
And it's true, Charles. Even people who love God can speak against his purposes without even realizing it. So how do we discern wise counsel from toxic negativity? How have you found that in your life?
Ooh, well, I found a lot of toxic negativity. I mean, a lot, unfortunately. And I hate to say it, but I think it's a challenge for me because I'm such a positive person by nature. I think God instilled on me ultra positivity.
Uh-huh.
But, simple test. Does the advice encourage you to trust God more or less? And I think that's powerful. Wise counsel builds faith, right?
That's
Negative
it.
advice tells you to shrink back.
And I think God often calls us to these very things that don't make human sense. Abraham, for instance, leaving everything? Are you kidding? Noah, building a boat when no one on earth had ever seen it rain, water falling from the sky. How about David, facing Goliath when his brothers, who were trained as soldiers, are cowering behind rocks? Counterintuitive, but the divine calling us into existence.
I absolutely love that. Or Gideon, God called this guy a mighty warrior, right? Then made his army smaller from 32,000 down to 300. I mean, that's a big change. But they wanted Israel to know victory came from God, not from human strength. And
You're absolutely right. And Paul in 1 Corinthians, I think it's his first letter, In the very first chapter, he says, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and God chooses the weak things to shame the strong.
It's quite interesting when people say your calling is foolish, you might be in good company, right? I mean, I'm like, okay.
Good point.
Even right now,
Good
people are like,
point.
well, this is crazy, this thing y'all are doing. And I'm like, because it's from God. But now I know, so I've got more confidence in my walk. I mean, the disciples were unschooled, weren't they? They were
They
ordinary
absolutely
men
were.
who turned the world upside down. The difference.
That's what makes all the difference all the time. It's not our credentials. It's our relationship with Jesus. And Charles, often the people that are most discouraging us are speaking from their own unfulfilled dreams. They're speaking oftentimes from a resentful, jealous heart, and they couldn't do it. So they project that limitation onto you. And it's so often the voice of what I call the red lizard. It's not the voice of God's Spirit calling us. This is the way, walk in it.
That's masterful, my friend. That is masterful. I like it because their no doesn't define your possibilities, right?
That line, man. I like that. Say that again.
Their no doesn't define your possibilities.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
God told Jeremiah, do not say I am too young. He tells us, do not say you cannot do. You must go to everyone I sent you to.
Wow. Chuck, I think for those listening who realize that they might have been the naysayer, how would you lift them up in grace? What would you say to them?
Man, I love it when I ask you these questions, but for me, and it hits home, so I feel comfortable saying this, but I say, be careful about speaking against someone's God-given dreams. Proverbs 18:21 says, the tongue has the power of life and death. Instead of pointing out failure, ask, could God be in this?
So true. How about Barnabas? You made me think of Barnabas as you're speaking. His name means son of encouragement. His name was actually Joseph. When everyone feared Paul, Barnabas saw God's work. And when Paul gave up on John Mark, it was Barnabas who believed in this young guy. That same John Mark wrote the Gospel of Mark. How about if it had just been up to the apostle? He would have booted the young guy out, not Barnabas. The opposite of a naysayer is an encourager, Charles.
That, Brent, I love that. One person's encouragement can change everything. You encourage me every day, and you change my life every day. And I know you don't even know that, but I'm telling you, you do. Encouragement to what we do and the walk that we walk, which is great. But what if Barnabas had agreed John Mark was a failure?
We would have lost an entire book of the Bible. We would have lost an example that this whole episode's about, where we've all been a naysayer and we've all endured naysayers. So if all is always overcome by God's grace. So what's your final word, Charles? Those feeling called to something impossible, but they've heard the voice of the naysayer and it's shut them right down. What do you say to them?
I'd say, remember Caleb's uncommon courage,
Mm.
right? God's calling isn't a cruel joke. It's not. He's not leading us somewhere just to watch us fail. He doesn't do that. He's purposeful. When he's leading us, he's purposeful. And we know when he's leading us to something he wants to accomplish through us. And that's huge.
So true.
I say trust his heart, trust his power, and reject the voices keeping you from your destiny.
Friends, when God calls you, he equips you. He doesn't call you because you're equipped. He equips you because he's called you. Big difference. Don't listen to the naysayer. Listen to the voice of the one that says behind you, this is the way, walk in it.
God's calling on your life is not a cruel joke. He's not leading you to something just to watch you fail. He's leading you to something he wants to accomplish through you. Trust your heart, trust his power, and reject the negative voices that will keep you from your destiny. Friends, thank you for joining me. Brent, thank you for joining us. So good to have you. This is the I Am Podcast, and I want you to remember you are not alone. When God calls you, he equips you. Don't let the naysayers have the final word. Let God have it. Until next time, this is Charles Beyer reminding you that you are who God says you are, and you can do what God says you can do. Be blessed. We'll see you next week on I Am.
You know, Charles, we've all been naysayers.
Yeah, we really have.
You'd think we would get over it, wouldn't you?
I'm over it now.